But this is a very exciting moment, I think, for all of us to have a very serious discussion, and I'm grateful that for the subject matter that we're going to talk about today. Let's look at the cards, first of all. Item number 1, item number 2, item number, I can't see this.
4.
Is this Antonio Romanos' 4?
Antonio.
Who what?
Antonio.
Hey, Antonio, and that's file number which item?
She has speaker's cards for 1, 2, and 4, and a public comment card.
Oh, I see. 1, 2, and 4, and public comment side. That's all I got here, huh?
So far?
So far. Okay, well, let's just start with you then, and go through those, unless you want to wait until we have a presentation or something like that. Okay, oh, if it's up to me, then let's do open public comment right now, and then come on up for the other 3, and we'll get that out of the way, and then we'll get into the discussion. And if you want to come back at a certain point, you're welcome to come back.
How would you like to do it? First, item number 1 or item...
Do the 2-minute public comment.
2 minutes for all of them, for the 4?
Oh, no.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. Take the time you need for each one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, please. Thank you. It's good to see you, sir.
Your name for the record.
My name is Antonia Ramirez. I'm item number 1. The Mayor, Antonio Villaraigosa, and some council members are the last people to have any input in considering options for connecting LA Ontario International Airport directly to the Metrolink system until the following public safety concerns are addressed. Now, first, I have a question. How many of you take the Dash buses, Metro buses, Amtrak, Surfliners, Metrolink coaster with frequency? I know I do, almost on a daily basis. So unlike most of you, I do speak out of my gluteus maximus, and because I have experience. Remember, experience is the best teacher, so I would qualify. Let's begin. You need to first clean, disinfect, and fumigate your Dash, Dot, Metro buses, Metrolinks, and Amtrak, Surfliner, and Coaster trains and buses, and all transportation hub areas and depot areas, i.e. Union Station and sofa chairs. It's deplorable. The aforementioned forms of transportation are saturated with the following contagious bacteria and lethal diseases, as mentioned to me also by many tourists from Europe. They are MRSA, scabies, virulent strains of staph infections, meningitis, hepatitis, urine and feces on the upholstery and leather and surrounding areas, foul stench, use bleach and Lysol, graffiti, vandalism, litter, rubbish all over, overcrowding with gangbangers and criminal illegal felons, unsafe because brawls break out, especially when there's a lot of overcrowding. And if any of you have seen that, I have witnessed it myself almost on a daily basis. Most of our trains and bus personnel are criminal gangbangers and criminal illegal aliens who can't speak English. So I have to speak in Spanish. They have no customer service. They have no professionalism and no ethics. So I'll go to the next when you're ready to call me. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Could I ask C3 to come on up on item number 1? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilman. Adrian Garcia from Councilman Dennis Zine's office. Unfortunately, he could not be here today. He had a previous engagement. He would have liked to have been here and give us a testimony on item number 1. I'll be speaking on his behalf. A quick short statement. I would like to thank you, Councilmember Rosendahl, for your leadership on this issue and finding an alternative method in bringing back Ontario Airport and making it a viable destination for visitors to the Southern California area. I am supportive of your motion because I believe Ontario to be a key asset of our region's airport system and to the growth of our region. As we all know, the total number of annual passengers at Ontario Airport has declined. This decline has driven more and more passengers to other regional airports, most notably Los Angeles International Airport and Burbank, and has led to increased congestion on our roads and an absolute lack of productivity for travelers who sometimes have to drive hours on Southern California roads just to make a simple flight to Northern California. This should not be the case. Last year, I made an unannounced personal visit to Ontario Airport so that I could see things firsthand. What I saw was shocking. I saw a beautiful modern airport with a complete terminal closed due to lack of flights. I saw approximately half of all of the concessions closed, including a popular name-brand coffee shop closed at 11:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I saw poorly maintained landscaping and a complete lack of public safety personnel. What I saw, in short, was pure neglect. As Ontario grows, the local economy grows and traffic is relieved on our Southern California roads and highways. It is astonishing to me and completely counterintuitive that as a population in the Ontario area and the Great Inland Empire region grow, the service and availability of flights at Ontario Airport has continued to decline. Connecting Ontario Airport with the rest of the region using alternative modes of transportation, such as light rail, is a path in the right direction and exactly what we need to do to revive Ontario Airport and link the Inland Empire with the rest of Los Angeles region and the region. I look forward to having deeper discussions on your motion once it comes before the City Council for final consideration. I encourage that the Transportation Committee support your motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And as many of you know, this morning, Dennis Stein and I held a press conference where we talked about these issues and what we're trying to clearly understand. And that's why I'm delighted to see Lau is here and Metrolink is here. We want to talk about it. Is can we do a link from Ontario to downtown? And if we can't make that work, will that get people downtown quicker than the west side, where you got to do some stuff at grade and so on and so forth, even though I want both the Green Line and the Crenshaw Line going into the central terminal area, getting on a people mover. When people get on those two trains, it's going to take longer than it will if the Ontario Metrolink thing can be made operable. And frankly, to me, it's regionalism at its best. I'm big on regionalism. So let me just go through the order of the agenda and have a seat there in case you come back up. First is to continue in item number 6, folks, and this is a Rosendahl Parks instructing DOT to improve visibility and also change the light timing to increase the timing of the all red at the intersection of Pacific and Brooks. We want to continue this item. If there's no problem with that, folks, we'll just continue it. Mr. Parks? No. Okay. Mr. Koretz? No. Okay, fine. On consent, we have a Rosendahl-Laban motion authorizing DOT to negotiate and execute an agreement between the city and Metrolink Southern California Regional Rail Authority for highway rail grade crossing improvements at Woodley Avenue and Raymer Street.
Mr. Rosendahl, you have a speaker's card on that? That's item 4, I believe.
That's item 4. Okay, item 4, speaker's card. Come on up. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Good afternoon again.
Well, again, good to see you, sir. One moment, please. What number was that? I'm sorry?
This
4.
is-
4? You said 4? Okay, thank you very much. Before you collectively execute any agreements between the City of Los Angeles and the Metrolink Southern California Regional Rail, clean and disinfect and fumigate all hub areas and all forms of transportation areas. Hire quality people with high standards, i.e. military veterans and furloughed pilots. Also intelligent, ethical, responsible, disciplined, responsive, and fair law enforcement personnel to mitigate all potential dangers, which is all the time. And first and foremost, hire military veterans who are active or inactive, uniformed or ununiformed, and pilots, again, that are on furlough, along with legal law-abiding Americans who speak English. All these variables will reduce all possible and lurking dangers, including crosswalk areas. Caveat, have an emergency landing area for our law enforcement chopper pilots. And i.e. my beloved Gillespie Airfield Daredevil pilots extraordinaire. Hey, anything is possible. Pilot safety in Los Angeles is a must. So I definitely suggest that. And again, you also have the element of danger. So I recommend hire competent individuals who can mitigate the problems, people who speak English, people who know the American way, people who can analyze reason and deduce a solution rather than snowball it and dismiss people or call them crazy. So please, hire Americans who are intelligent, who can dissect the information within a few minutes and disseminate a response, an immediate response before it gets physical. And we have that a lot on the buses, on the trains. Oh my goodness. And rarely do you get good people who are reasonable and competent. And I take such pride in giving out their names and giving them commendations. I enjoy that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Can we move forward with this on consent?
Sure.
So suggested by Mr. Koretz and Mr. Parks?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. The three of us are moving forward with that item on consent. And by the way, we did public comment, right? You did the public comment one first when we got up there.
No, sir, she did comment on number 1, not general public comment.
Oh, she didn't? I
No.
see. Mr. Labange is joining us. We're delighted to see you.
I'm okay with, at the end, I have no time schedule. I'm perfectly well to do it all at the end. That's okay with you. I've got the whole day free.
Well, what I want to do is, I want to do your general public comment, then I want to close public comment. So if we could ask you to come up and do that, then I want to close public comment, and then I want to get into the issues of the day.
Thank you very much again.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
4 and 6 are done.
4 and 6.
Yes,
One moment, if I could find it here.
unless you want me to revisit it.
Come back to 1, Mr. Labange.
It's up to you, sir.
Go ahead.
One moment.
This is
Okay.
general public comment.
Okay, here we
If there's
go.
nobody else with a general public comment card, after the lady speaks, we will close general public comment.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, I ride these buses, trains, and everything all the time. I am sorely disappointed with the present mayor and council members for making it a priority to hire cheap labor. Remember, the city is a mirror image of your collective city council members and personnel. Now, keep that in mind. There's only a few of you that are wonderful and outstanding, and I will give credit where credit is rightfully due. As you see, all our forms of transportations are packed to capacity with criminal, illegal felons, and gangbangers, who also have no class, no respect, no pride and dignity, or any form of customer service. And to be happy that they work in America, they are dumb as mud. Your questions or directions, nor your concerns get adequately addressed because most of the time they can't speak English or can't analyze. Raise the standard and quality in Los Angeles. I want high class. I want English only. I want customer service. I want cleanliness. I want hygiene. I want true business arrogance. Is that too much to ask in the city of Los Angeles? And I'm so proud to be in America. I utilize this form of transportation because if I were to get a Beamer, the gangbangers would tamper with my vehicle and it'd be breaking down every block. So I'm not that fortunate anymore. So you see, that's my plight. I am now at the forefront with these gangbangers. And so they are every day in my life haggling me. And so I apologize, but I also want to make that opportunity available because I have many friends from Asia who come and visit me. From Japan, I used to live in the Orient, and so many of them come and I take them around. I chauffeur them around Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, the airports. I take them everywhere, show them where it's safe, where I can make sure that I can hand deliver or air deliver my Japanese friends back to Japan safe and sound. And that to me is important. I show the beautiful areas of America. Today, I can look at the American flag and say, I am proud to be an American, and I want to show the beauty of America. Show me people with class and good, as they say, noggins, and I'll show you what America is all about.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And our second card, open public comment. Ma'am, come on up. You just walked into the room. Is that Bella? Bella Temkin?
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, Bella.
Thank you.
You have 2 minutes.
I've been here since 1.
Oh, well, welcome.
Thank you,
It's a little chilly in here. I'm glad you got your jacket on.
thank you. Can I show you guys?
You can do whatever you want. You
Can I
got
give you
2
paperwork?
minutes. If you want to show us, give it to the officer. He'll pass them out.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. Right? You want me to sit here?
Oh, thanks.
So I'm a 20-year, you want me to sit?
Please,
Sit.
relax. And let's start the clock
relax.
again and give her
Okay.
the respect of 2 fresh minutes. Go for it.
Okay. I'm a 20-year resident of Marina Del Rey. And I own a building, and I do everything legally by the book. I'm asking for your help. I have neighbors who built an illegal wall across from my garage, so I don't, and my driveway, and it makes it impossible for me to have access to my driveway and my garage. These are pictures of what it looks like. There's an 18-foot street, and I have no way of getting in and out of my driveway when cars,
How long has this been going on?
a year and a half. And for the first 17 and a half years, I had no problems at all. There was an administrative hearing, and I got the wall to come down, and that was a year and a half ago. They have since built up this pretty little planter box so that cars don't want to park too close to the foliage, and it makes it twice as hard for me to get in and out of my driveway. The people at One Buccaneer, as well as the neighbors, began parking in the little garden area ever since I brought them to issue with the district attorney. The police will not cite or tow because there is no parking sign in this little area, and there never was people never parked there for 17 and a half years. Now One Buccaneer, the building that has this little garden, they built a lovely garden with a smaller wall, a 6-inch wall. Am I all done?
Finish your sentence.
I can. And now cars park from all over. They think they can. They don't realize they're blocking me in, and the police will do nothing about it. With the help of Mark Grant and code enforcement Tom Carabello, he recommended no parking signs. Jim Berman and Kelton Kirby of engineering said yes to no parking signs. Even the Coastal Commission said okay to parking signs if Brian Gallagher says it's okay. Brian Gallagher says it's not okay. I don't know why. His only question to me was, what's the history? How come for all these years people haven't had an issue, and why all of a sudden is there an issue? I don't know. All I know.
Brian Gallagher is one of the most effective transportation guys.
You know, he walks on water in our minds a lot.
But there's a lot of water west of where she lives.
I'll tell you, this guy has done an amazing amount of work, and of course, Mark Grant is also a very class act guy on my staff.
Yes, he is.
So why don't we continue to have this discussion, but not in the public arena here now. Where's Brian? Is Brian in the room?
He's out at somebody's house getting something fixed.
Yeah, and he was laughing, the staff was laughing because we all know the reality of this. All right, Paul Backstrom is going to come up to you right now. This is Paul Backstrom. He's right behind you.
Hi.
And what Paul's going to do is set up a follow-up meeting with Brian and Mark, and we'll figure out where we go with this.
Really? Okay.
Okay?
Today?
Thank you. In the next day or two, they'll get with you. Don't worry about that. It's a matter, we publicly did it on the record. We're going to publicly go after this, and we'll find out what we can do. Promise.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much. I appreciate that.
Do you need those papers, or should I take them back?
Give them all to Paul.
All right.
Paul Backstrom. Okay, so with that as a backdrop now, and we've closed, public comment is now closed. Okay. So we have on consent, and we've done this already, Rosendahl, Labange, authorizing DOT. Tom, I just wanted to get your vote on that one. You're in favor of that?
Sure.
On consent. We continued the Rosendahl Parks item, which had to do with visibility and change the light timing to increase the timing for all red and intersection, Pacific and Brooks. We're continuing that. And then, of course, item number 7 on consent is report DOT relative to freeway agreement with Caltrans for improvement of the Harbor Freeway SR 110. We had that on consent as well.
Good.
Okay, so that's unanimous among all 4 of us. Now we're going to go to the regular agenda. And I see that Jaime's in the back of the room. Good to see you, Jaime. It's always a pleasure. You're doing a great job there, the way you're streamlining things and making it all happen. See, I got to butter him up because we need him in a very meaningful way. Okay, now we're going to go to the next item, which is item number 1. Read what item number 1 is.
Item number one is the Rosendahl Zion Perry motion requesting that the mayor and Los Angeles World Airports to work with Metrolink to consider options for connecting LA Ontario International Airport directly with the Metrolink system and to report with recommendations for moving forward on such a connection.
And before Mark speaks, and good to see you again, Mark.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have Metrolink in the room?
That's me.
Oh, that's you. That's fantastic. You know, you mean so much to me going forward that I'm going to look forward to what you have to say and how you say it. And who else do we have in the room, in the back? That's all DOT?
DOT's here.
That's what I mean. Very good. Okay, do you want to come up to the table as well? Okay, so we have the chair, we got the head of the department here, okay, we have Metrolink here, and we have LAWA here. Is there anybody else to testify that needs to stand up and come up? Okay, well, we're ready to go on this item. This is a request that the mayor and LAWA work with Metrolink to consider options for connecting LA Ontario International Airport directly to the Metrolink system. Now, the reason I'm taking this point this seriously is for obvious reasons. I believe in regionalism. I think the great work we've been doing at LAX modernization, hats off to Gina Marie Lindsay for that. We've been able to keep people in Westchester in the loop, part of the process, no lawsuits, and obviously the ability to modernize that airport. We're also very well aware that the more you modernize LAX, the more those costs get passed on to the airlines. And before you know it, it's going to be more expensive to fly to LAX than it has ever been. Right now, many of us know that LAX is the cheapest takeoff and landing major airport in America. And if I was a big shot in some corporate world, all I care about is profit, I would continue to go to LAX because it's cheaper. However, once the modernization, as it has been kicking in right now, has proven, is that Ontario will become more and more attractive. I just want to make sure everybody knows on record here, I am not for selling Ontario. I'm for expanding the region into a larger region than the LA scene itself. I believe Metrolink could tie things together and tie things back, and we could actually make Ontario a lot more successful with not only bringing in passengers in jumbo jets from all over the world, have nonstop, direct, frequent, discounted flights out of Ontario, which is what my goal is, but also everything to do with freight could be also out of Ontario. And Ontario will no longer be the Maytag man waiting for business, okay? And then the Inland Empire is connected, and then Orange County gets connected, and we truly have what I believe we should have as a megalopolis, microcosm of the planet from Santa Barbara to San Diego, and that's why we exist the way we do. So thank you, the three of you, for coming up. Let me just start with the backdrop with Metrolink. Explain how Metrolink works. And I was told before I got in here today that you actually are using tracks from some other group, the Southern Railway or whatever. Tell us what Metrolink is all about, and can we get it into Ontario, and would it make sense?
Sure. Metrolink is...
For the record.
Oh, so Patricia Torres Bruno, I'm a government and regulatory affairs manager for Metrolink. And thank you very much for your leadership on this, and I'm happy to be here to see how we can work together on this. Metrolink is a commuter rail agency, and we cover the 5 counties from Ventura County, San Bernardino, Riverside, Los Angeles County, Orange County, and we even are starting some service into San Diego. So we cover the 5 county regions, and our agency is unique. It's a joint powers authority, and we are owned by our 5 county transportation commissions. Ventura County Transportation Commission, OCTA, Metro, the San Bernardino Association of Governments, and the Riverside Transportation Commission. And we are primarily funded by them, and they for the tracks that we own, they're really owned by our member agencies. For instance, one of the options that could be a potential option for ridership is on the Riverside line. The operating rights are actually owned by Metro. So Metro paid for these operating rights back in 1990 from the rates, and now if we try to acquire additional rights to those rights, operating rights, would be in the millions of dollars. But at that time, it was about $400,000 per slot. So Metrolink functions, in this context with, we work very closely with our member agencies on increasing service. Usually that service is, funded by our member agencies if we're going to expand in a certain area. So that kind of gives you a sense of, how our governance structure is. We provide service. We bring in folks from all over the 5 counties. We take them to major economic centers, business centers. Most of our service is focused on during peak hours and work hours and in the evenings. So, but we are a commuter rail agency, and that's kind of our focus.
Okay, so
Does that give you?
That as go ahead, finish.
No, does that give you kind of a sense of?
It does give me a sense, and it gives me even more hope and optimism that we can conceivably work out something that would be in everybody's benefit, as long as everybody's in the room and discussing it and working through it and seeing it happen.
Yeah, I wanted to make a point. Our track is we share tracks with some of the freights, and they own some of the tracks that we travel on. So for one of the lines, like the Riverside line, that one is owned by UP, and we have to negotiate with them to get additional slots. And we are actually at capacity on that line, and so that's why we have limited service. And that is, from what I understand, a very important line for UP. This, I guess, is one of the lines that they bring a lot of the freight on. So from what I understand, they're not, and I don't want to speak for UP, but from what I understand, they want to limit the passenger service at this point.
And I appreciate that candor on your part. What my dream will be, and I'm going to ask both LAWA and DOT to explore it and bring it back to us, because we can't make a decision today. But I want to make sure we go on record and say what our goal is, frankly, regionalism at its best. We know Ontario is the Maytag man waiting for business. It's really sad that this huge, large airport, which could handle these jumbo jets, these, giant planes, and I don't think the convenience issue of LAX is good enough for me. It's safety that I care about when it comes to LAX. And we've been dealing with LAX from a safety standpoint with the NASA study that really told us to staff the tower with 47 folks who have the credentials. We still don't have 47. And we also want to get the runway status lights in, which we have the FAA backing us on it and understand the time frame. The ultimate dream, frankly, is that we all share in the airplane world, because we are this large megalopolis. I certainly want the jumbo jets to come to town, but I don't want them to go to LAX and destroy Westchester. It's as simple as that. And it will make it worse in Westchester. It's already tight as it is. So that's just a philosophical backdrop. But Mark, if you could just comment on the concept of going to Ontario through Metrolink and the potential feasibility of tying in Orange County through Anaheim multimodal, and then from the Metrolink from Santa Barbara, all the way over to Palm Springs. Now, the mayor has the authority, and I'm going to ask Jaime to tell me if this is true or not, the authority with the Measure R, which is such an incredible vision of his, to do in 10 years what would take 30 years, and it would create 159,000 temporary good jobs, and then in the long run, there'd be another 10 to 20,000 jobs that would come out of the whole thing overall. So the concept is great on the regional level. Can you work with the concept over the next 30 days of how we could conceivably put together the Metrolink component and take the pressure off of LAX convenience issue and let the super jets go to Ontario?
Mark Adams, Los Angeles World Airports. I think it's very conceivable that we could put together a report regarding the connectability of Metrolink to Ontario Airport. I think some of the things that need to be considered are there are 2 Metrolink lines that run near Ontario Airport currently. One to the north, the San Bernardino line, has much more traffic on it, but is further from the airport. There's a Riverside line to the south of the airport that's closer, but as Patricia explained, is capacity constrained. Some of the timetable issues with the Metrolink trains might be challenging for people who are trying to connect from a train to a flight, and working out the shuttle buses and who pays for that. That's going to be another issue. There are a host of things that we need to explore there, and I think we could, obviously put that all in a report and have it back to you within 30 days. That would sort of break down the key, obstacles and roadblocks and what might be done.
Well, I appreciate that openness and your desire to figure this out and where we take it. I appreciate it very much. Jaime, hi. What is your take on this? And do you see us at least exploring this making sense? And could it actually be the solution?
Thank you, Councilman. Jaime de la Vega, DOT. First, I want to say that after you introduced this motion and I saw you in the mayor's office, I actually called Michael DePaula, who's the new CEO at Metrolink, and asked him and his staff to begin exploring this idea, and they've made that commitment already. So I think some of the work is already underway. So I'm optimistic that they should be able to report back to you on the timetable you're requesting. I think the other thing you should consider asking of Law and Metrolink is also look at flyway service expansion to Ontario and or connecting the Gold Line to Ontario. I think Metrolink is one possible solution, but you shouldn't necessarily limit yourself to only one solution.
Well, I'm even open to that too, because regionalism is what we're all about, and I appreciate that openness on it. Do you see, does the mayor, and those of you who don't know this, I did bang on the door and go in a meeting where the mayor was holding with his top people, and I brought up this whole thing about the Metrolink, and how this could be this and this could do that. And you just heard Jaime said he immediately got on the phone after that meeting. And the mayor was very open to me on this. He wasn't like slam dunk, I got to have this 260 north, and darn it, I got to make it convenient for them. The issue isn't convenience from an LAX. It's actually more convenient if you flew directly to Ontario and got into downtown LA, which is where you want to go on this particular part. I live in the west side. I'll stay with the west side airport. But if I'm on the east side, I'd rather go somewhere else, or in Anaheim or Ventura. So give me your sensing of when I stuck my head in the room, where you and the mayor and the DOT staff are.
Councilman, I'm going to speak for myself and the department, not for the mayor.
That's very smart.
Yes. The department's here to assist. Also, in my capacity as a Metrolink board member alternate, I'm also here to help you guys and help facilitate the conversation with the Metrolink board and staff.
Colleagues, Paul.
Yeah, I have a million questions on this, but probably the most direct is, have we made any kind of a decision on whether we are definitely keeping Ontario as an LA system airport, definitely looking to give it back to Ontario? I mean, where are we on that? Because I have to say, over the years, Ontario is doing worse and worse as an airport. I know even state legislators that used to take Ontario Airport and live in the area to go to Sacramento every week now have to drive into Burbank or LAX because they don't have appropriate flights, even on some of the most obvious destinations that I thought were pretty well used. So how do we do it? How do we either bump up the airport or give it back to Ontario? And if we're giving it back to Ontario, is it our responsibility? Will this make it more likely that Ontario is successful? How much more likely do we think it makes it? All those kinds of questions.
Well, as directed by the council, we're negotiating now with the CAO, and LALA are negotiating with the City of Ontario and the Ontario International Airport Authority that was recently created by a joint powers agreement out there in the Inland Empire. We're negotiating with them over the future of Ontario Airport and are proceeding with those discussions. Whether or not that results in some sort of a sale back to the City of Ontario, to the Ontario International Airport Authority, remains to be seen. We'll report back to council when we have something to report. But the CAO is facilitating those discussions, and they're proceeding with those. But at the same time, we are working to, grow Ontario as best we can under the current airline operating constraints that the industry has put in on medium-sized airports. I mean, Burbank is languishing, Ontario is languishing, all the unconstrained medium-sized airports are hurting up and down the state. Oakland is the same situation. We are trying to do what we can to grow service in Ontario. We just started service to Reno and Tahoe last month, and we look forward to, or it was early this month, but we look forward to continuing to try to grow Ontario as best we can, even while we have those discussions with the City of Ontario.
Do we have a sense of how much of a difference this would make?
There was Metrolink connector service via the local transit operator Omnitrans. That was about 10 years ago. It wasn't very popular. I can't say under the current conditions whether it would be more or less popular. I think a lot of it depends on what we do when we do a report back and look at the different lines and the ridership on the different lines and try to see if maybe there'd be a way to construct it that would be different than it was done in the past. I know in the past it wasn't very popular, but it could be the way it was constructed rather than the nature of the connection.
Do we know how it was marketed, whether marketing was also a factor in it?
Well, Omnitrans ran a shuttle connector from the East Ontario station on the Riverside line up to the airport and back. The problem with that is that the East Ontario line, as we've pointed out, is constrained in terms of the number of trains they can get on that. So it's a lower ridership line than the San Bernardino line. And so perhaps we should look at, rather than connecting, it would be a longer bus ride to Rancho Cucamonga, but perhaps we ought to look at a bus connection to Rancho Cucamonga rather than East Ontario. And those are the sort of things we'll kind of explore through this report.
And who would fund this? Where would the funding come from? Would it be the airport system? Would it be other special funds? Would it be general fund?
If we were to run a bus connector from one of the train stations, the funding is yet to be determined. If it was the airport that was going to fund it, it would come from Ontario airport funds.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. LaFont,
Yes.
I want to thank you, first of all, for appreciating the fact that we in T Committee will tee it up for you for trade, commerce, and development.
Thank you very much. But the big challenge we have, where you see Mark standing right there, if you had the size of that airport, the runway in the airport is right where Mark is. And then right across, really ideal for your idea, but it's a Union Pacific track, and they don't share because they share other lines. That's the biggest problem you have here. And then on the far side, which may be against the wall, Lisa, raise your hand so you get an idea. Over there, that far away, way far away from the infrastructure of the front, it's not an easy, simple solution. I spent an hour and a half Monday out in Ontario because I wanted to learn that, because Mr. Design is pushing hard to try to sell it, and I don't know it's the right thing.
I want to sell it.
I know, but he wants to. I don't know what the deal is. But who determines who flies where? Do you tell Lufthansa to fly here and Virgin Air, or who makes that shot call?
No, the airlines determine where they're going to fly their airplanes.
The airlines determine, okay.
Based on what they see as profitable.
It's traffic, okay. So that's one of the challenges that we have. And many things have been consolidated now, which is tough. I truly believe if we were real smart, we'd run that high-speed rail. The Green Line is a high-speed rail in and throughout West, all the way to that other airport, from LAX to the other. But that's still time to look at. Where's the train going into LAX to get traffic off the street? Where's the train supposed to go into LAX, the extension of the Crenshaw line?
The Crenshaw line right now is scheduled is going to have a station at the corner of Century and Aviation, but Gina Marie and Lawa have made it known to Metro that there are opportunities to put a station closer. And
like 96 and Sepulveda. Have you taken a position on that, Mr. Rosendahl?
My position is really clear. I would love to see both the Crenshaw line and the Green Line go into the terminal area where Gina Marie has her office now, and just go right into a people mover, and then you do the whole area.
Right. And Mr. Parks, do you know if the Crenshaw line, does it, at Crenshaw and the Expo line, is there going to be a connector for that line, or you got to change trains? Change trains. So all this is so important, but it's a bigger challenge out in Ontario because it's a big field. and it was interesting to drive around and get a tour. Thank you, Mark Adams, and the other gentleman who, forgive me, what's his name?
Jess Romo.
Jess Ramos, who I met in like 1989 at an old firehouse. He worked for General Services then. Now he's running the airport. Okay. Let's study it, but I think it's very tough.
Okay, and I appreciate Tom's candor too, where he's coming from on this thing. I truly believe that where there's a will, there's a way. And with technology being what it is today, and knowing how successful our mayor's been with the Measure R concept, I'm just sorry that we didn't win the second time around the other day, but, I don't think we need to worry about it. I think we can get done within the next 10 years what would have taken 30 years. And frankly, if we can get from Metrolink all of the forces you have to play with to help make it happen, it will solve the Ontario problem. Because I would believe if I went on a jumbo jet at one of these giant guys that they're not even clear how safe they are yet. They're still going through those bugs. And they went directly to Ontario and then literally without thinking much get out of it and get on a Metrolink and they're downtown, you got a huge grand slam. Because LAX benefits from the standpoint that expansion doesn't have to happen there. And Ontario's happy because they finally get a thriving airport that not only creates jobs, but convenience for people. So I know it's a lot of pressure on you, but whatever we can do within the next 30 days from my standpoint or my three colleagues here, we're open to it. We're open to discuss it. We're open to listen to it. We're open to see if there are options and alternatives, and make a dramatic new change in how we're heading as a city on this issue. Okay, Mr. Park. No, I'm just waiting for the report. Mr. Park said he'll wait for the report back. You want to say anything more at this point? Nope. Fine. Doesn't want to say. Okay. Any comments from the three presenters?
So thank you for the opportunity. We'll work with the City of LA on this effort.
Good, and also work with the leaders, the officials in Ontario. I got messages to them later today that we were doing this afternoon. But it's the beginning of a good, healthy discussion.
Yeah.
Nothing gets lost when you do this kind of regional strategy discussion. Hey, anybody else in the room who wants to talk above your boss's level or anything like that? Okay, all right, so what we've just done is approve on the regular calendar, Rosendahl, Zine, Perry, to see if we can find other options and alternatives over the next 30 days. Okay. And then that's that issue. Thank you all for that. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is a DOT report relative to the implementation of a new high-visibility crosswalk design and policy for improved pedestrian safety and to enhance the city's built environment and pedestrian experience.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Tell us about this.
Good to see you, council members. Pauline Chan from LADOT. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you about our new high-visibility crosswalk design and policy. The current design standard that LADOT uses at a signalized location would be the simple 2 parallel lines across the crossing. At uncontrolled locations, we use a ladder crosswalk, which would consist of the 2 parallel lines plus wide stripes in between the 2 lines. Today, we now have a new standard. It is similar to the ladder crosswalk. We simply delete the 2 parallel lines and add a limit line. And the new policy is that we would have this, implement this new standard at the signalized locations as well, so that we will have a high visibility pattern, not only at locations without a signal or stop signs, we would also be employing this design at a location with a traffic control device. The reason we have we are implementing this new design is because empirical research shows that the visibility for an oncoming motorist is much better with this high visibility pattern than the simple 2 lines. And as we embark on a new pedestrian program, our primary goal is to reduce injuries and fatalities associated with vehicle-pedestrian crashes. In our search for new tools to accomplish this goal, and in analyzing the crash data for the worst intersections in the city with the worst crash experience, we find that close to 90% or more of the top 50 locations with the worst crash histories, pedestrian motorist crashes, are actually signalized locations. It is not intuitive, but that is what the facts show. So we have a great challenge ahead of us to figure out how to improve the conditions at these intersections, or do education or use other enforcement efforts to attack this problem of safety. But as our first initiative, we would like to elevate the visibility of the pedestrians as they make their crossings, and to better define their space, encourage better motorist compliance from encroaching into the crosswalk space, and of course to raise the visibility of those that of motorists who are just traveling at high speeds, and that we can offer some visual cues as to where to expect pedestrian crossings, to basically enforce the traffic signal command as well. We have began our first phase of our program to slowly convert the crosswalks in the city using this new high visibility design. And our program involves a 3-month effort to change these crosswalks into continental at the top 50 locations in the city. And the effort has begun at 5th and Main in this 5th and Spring in December. We are now working on our first third in the month of January, and we will conclude the conversion for these top 50 by the end of March.
Zaki Mustafa, LADOT. This is really exciting times for us to come up with something new, different, and being the first to implement this. But not only are we going to be helping the pedestrians, but also the bicyclists, because when we're setting that limit line ahead of the actual crosswalk, we're putting in bike detectable loop detectors that's going to detect the bicyclist. So it's a win-win for everyone. By keeping the cars away from right next to the pedestrian, you're creating that additional safety zone. Pauline had mentioned the 50 locations, but it's going to be everywhere, citywide. And we're going to need your help to fund these new crosswalks, because they are a little more expensive, and the loop detectors are a little more expensive, and you're going to be using them citywide. But that's something that we're going to be constrained in our budget for next year. That's something that you'll have to keep in mind.
Well, that's why I hope, and I don't want to get political here, is that the voters in March vote for that half-cent sales tax that will give us $220 million to solve a lot of our problems that right now seem rather challenging than before. Right. What action would you like from our committee? To approve this concept and you report back on a regular basis?
This is a receive and file report, just to let you know. So.
Okay, and I love it. We'll file it as a report, but plan to come back in 2 months with an update. Okay?
Sure, we'll do that.
Oh, please, yes. Of course.
Yeah, I'm curious, I hadn't heard about this concept before. Has it been tried in other cities? Is it something we just developed here? What's the background?
It's been used nationwide. We have looked into it in the past as well, but we haven't really took the initiative. You know, it's been hard for us to change in the past, but now we're in a different era. We are looking forward to doing things in a different way, making it more efficient and more looking towards safety. Safety is the key issue for our department. How can we make it safe for people? Mm-hmm. And New York, DC, San Francisco, quite a few other agencies are using it.
So presumably, since they are more expensive and it'll take a while to fund it, you're obviously starting with the worst intersections, and presumably you'll continue prioritizing them based on the safety hazard, I assume.
Well, we're looking into going in a big dive and just taking care of, after we have the 50s done, anything and everything that we work on, basically. Any resurfacing projects that we're tackling, any projects that we're going to be touching, if it involves a crosswalk, we're going to try to go in that direction.
Great. And I appreciate the couple in my district, especially Pico and La Cienega, where I know there's a lot of pedestrian activity among the Orthodox community, and occasionally people get hit. So I appreciate that, and I'm excited to hear that we're doing this and expanding it across the city.
And I just want to add that this, the crosswalks is one of the first initiatives of raising pedestrianism in the city at a time when we're trying to expand our transit system. So we really need to improve the access to the transit system, to the stations, and the comfort level of that environment so that we can encourage more people to take transit and walk and bicycle.
Very good.
Thank you, Pauline, for all that you've done, and Zaki as well. One problem I have is I watch at certain intersections, the loop detector is sometimes offset or not exactly where it is, and it's well into the intersection past the limit line of existing crosswalks, so then people impede into the crosswalks. Have you noticed that?
Yes, I have, and that's where this new limit line is going to make a big difference, because the vehicle code, the California Traffic Control Manual and the FHWA guideline tells you the limit line has to be within 6 feet of the limit. The loop detector has to be within the 6 feet of the limit line, and not necessarily on the limit line itself.
Many of them are on, and then people creep into it just to get the signal of the trip.
And this is going to make a big difference, because you won't see the loop detector right at the right at the crosswalk.
Well, Fifth and Spring runs on time, right? Whether it's ATSAC time or, but a loop off a side street like a Benton Way and Sunset, that would be something a little more appropriate.
Right. Our goal eventually is to have every single intersection actuated, and when we do have that, then we will have the loops on the major.
And also, I've seen in other cities where they have look both ways. You know, I think one of the biggest changes in transportation, a lot has been the staffing, but over the last 30 years, you used to have more paint on the street. You know, stop ahead. Now you just have a stop sign there. Sometimes you just have a limit line, you have nothing. So it just, to make that awareness a little bit higher, how wide is this crosswalk going to be now?
Well, the crosswalk width is still going to be, depending on the location, from 15 to 20 feet, depends on the volume or number of people crossing there. It's the limit line after. Have you seen do you have the diagram with you?
I've seen it, yeah.
Okay. It's the limit line that's going to be about 5 feet from the crosswalk lines.
The other thing, too, I wanted to say, I think there should be a state law that prohibits people from talking on cell phones crossing the street, because they're not paying attention to crossing the street. So could you write me a motion, Maria, on calling for state legislation to encourage people not to, because they're walking and they're talking and they're not texting to do whatever it is, they're not paying attention. The biggest important thing is eye contact. It seems more than anything else in the world when someone connects in the eye, they do stop that. And you mentioned there's more intersections. John Fisher, the former assistant general manager, always would say there were more intersection accidents at intersections because it creates more activity. I don't like unmarked crosswalks because it provides a sense of security that can't be guaranteed. So some of these things are important to look at, but education is the biggest thing. And also, Maria, I want to ask a question, if we could ask this. I don't know what it would do, but I think we should raise the license fee for Californians to pay for student driving, teaching. They don't teach how to drive anymore in school. Nobody gets that anymore. And what are our accidents statewide? Do you know the statistics? Mr. Rosendahl, could you, as committee chair, request, let's get a statistical report now that we're into January. What happened last year in California, in the county, in the city, and then in what parts of the city? You know, I think it's real important to know, to break down where it is. Speed kills. All that is so important to do. And if we get those facts, I think it would help us. But I always appreciate what our engineers have done in the Department of Transportation, especially creating ADSAC, which is a part of the 1984 Games legacy, which still continues to this day. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for that insight, Tom. I'll be happy to second your motion or even deal with your motion. Please do. Mr. Kretz.
Yeah, I just want to say that that's a great idea, and I would probably contact Senator Joe Simitian, who's done all of the similar legislation on hands-free driving, et cetera. And Northern California.
Like Williams or something?
You know, I don't remember the exact area, but he's been very focused on this, and I'm sure LA City could be the sponsor of that legislation. I suspect it would pass. So anything I can do to help with it, great idea.
Thank you.
Good, and before we take action, of course, we have another public comment card.
Thank you.
And we'd certainly like to invite Antonio Ramirez to come up. Sure, before you get down, Mr. Parks has a question for you. Come on back. Mr. Parks, Pauline.
Back up. Trying to get out of here.
I just want to commend you on the report. I just have one favor to ask. I know that we use a lot of traffic stats to determine where collisions occur and where crosswalks, but we have a number of intersections that need crosswalks to where they're barely getting across the street, and maybe there's not a collision, but if you go out there, it is significantly unsafe. And I want to point one out to you at 4112 West Lawson. It's right in front of a church, the Great Grace Methodist Church. It's an enormously wide street at Slauson, and people get a running start at Angeles Vista, and there's not another stop for a half to a mile. And most of the congregation at that church is elderly, and they walk to church from the north part of the community, and they have to cross Slauson. And it's almost like a bullfight for them to get across Slauson and survive each time they go across. And each time you've gone out, you say, well, it doesn't have this or it doesn't have the engineering, but there's absolute necessity to have one of those buttons that they can activate the crosswalk. Every now and then, Southwest or South Traffic will put a motorcycle down the street and they will slow it down a little bit, but there are people doing 60 and 70 miles an hour between Angeles Vista and the next stoplight, and if they make the next stoplight, they go all the way to probably West Boulevard. And so it's a very dangerous area. We've been fortunate not to have collisions, but we'd hate to wait until somebody is killed and then say, now let's put the crosswalk there.
We'll be more than happy to look at that intersection.
that.
I'll work with the district engineer and see what we can come
And
up
the
with.
pastor there is Reverend Hill. He
Okay.
may
If
be
you
pushed.
could be kind enough, have your staff give us the contact information, that'll be
Come on up.
grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, but you just hang on the side, don't run away yet, because I wanted to comment in case we need to react to it, okay?
Very much.
Please.
Thank you.
Your name for the record again?
Again, Antonia Ramirez. I'm all for the implementation of new high-visibility crosswalk design and policy for improved pedestrian safety with advanced technology nowadays, but your underlying problems have been your unfavorable and incompetent hiring practices. There's no other way to put it. Well, common sense would dictate, first and foremost, hire legal law-abiding citizens like our all-American military veterans, whether they are uniformed or ununiformed, active or inactive, and our pilots who are currently furloughed. And as you already know, thank you, Chair Rosendahl, you are military, and you are professional, and you have exercised due diligence. And so you see, nobody gets shortchanged, and for that, I truly am grateful. I humble myself before you. And remember, a bulk of your problems stem from hiring cheap labor, gangbangers, and criminal illegal felons who use no reasonable skills in utilizing safety for passengers and pedestrians, much less answer any questions. Improve your quality and quality control of your employees. Hence, you will raise the standards and reduce unsafe scenarios and reduce the exorbitant lawsuits that will be coming in your path. And is that the way you want to leave your office, with a hefty bunch of lawsuits hanging over you because you made the wrong, stupid choices? Again, for every action, equal and opposite reactions. So, again, cause and effect. You make the right change, you will have the right result. It's very simple, commonsensical. So for that, I truly am grateful and I'm honored. And again, hire military veterans. There's so many of them coming out of the military and they desperately need a job. And I don't make a commission or a percentage, but I do want that for them. I want to leave this world saying, I did something for these wonderful souls.
Beautiful.
They've got a whirlpool of humanity, and including our pilots, many are on furlough. Give them a job part-time or full-time, utilizing this area.
Thank
Please.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. That was more of a statement, obviously. Is there any further comment the two of you would like to make? So you caught the interaction here. You'll come back in a couple of months and give us an update on it. Mr. Labange's friendly amendment to deal with Sacramento, we'll work on that as well.
Two motions.
We'll do,
And we'll get it all together and keep moving forward with it.
So
Thank
what
you.
is the worst intersection in the city right now for traffic accidents?
A fact sheet was included in the report,
Okay,
and based on the parameters we chose, the worst one was 7th and Alvarado. 7th
a lot of
Street and
pedestrians
Alvarado.
there, not far from a metro rail station.
Right.
Okay, that's sad. Okay,
Right.
so it's so tough. So you're gonna, and it's such a narrow, 7th is a narrow street. Alvarado is substandard as far as narrow. It's not a major highway, but it carries traffic like it's a major highway. But anyway, thank you, Pauline. Mr. Chair, thank you, and Zach.
Oh, thank you very much for that. Pauline, you're a living legend, just so everybody knows that in the room. You've been terrific over the years. Appreciate it. Jaime, I'd like to bring you up for another question. And if this is questionable, city attorney will tell me this. We're talking safety again. What's your take when we talk about humps? Let me explain the issue. Anecdotally, and I'd like you to give a report back. I just want to go public with coming out here right now. Is the fire department has had historic concerns over humps. They have anecdotally said to me, a hump is a problem for any emergency vehicle, and it's a question, should we even have humps to begin with? Obviously, citizenry like humps because it means slowing down some traffic, especially around kids and schools and situations that people feel we're better off with the hump throughout the city. So the chief is in a tough spot. He says to me, and I don't know how we act on this, other than you providing us some leadership on this. He is saying that the humps are a problem, they're a safety issue. I obviously agree that it's the hump that causes that, be it the paramedic thing, or even the hook and ladder, to have to slow down or have to deal with things that go that way. Some of my communities are absolutely 100%, they'll kill to have their humps. And one of them is the canal area there on Ocean. And I am going before their annual meeting next week, and I'm going to say there's a safety concern on this. And I'd like you to explore that from the standpoint of DOT. Is it a safety issue? Is it something we need to deal with? Can we deal with it? Does it open up Pandora's box? All of these issues, I'd like to get your insight into, and I'd like to agendize this for I don't know, when's our next meeting, Paul? For February 13th. Would that work for you to do that?
Yes, happy to report back, sir.
Great.
Hey, in another city, I was in Glendale, they have humps, but they also have, for the fire trucks, like a cutout. Have you seen those?
Is that right?
On Stocker Street it was, or Glendale? Could you check with the city of Glendale?
Yes, well,
And then it's a vehicle code violation when people, leave the hump, but it's the fire department has a shot to go. It's not far from a firehouse, so that's probably why. It's east of Brand. Maybe it's not, it could be Stocker. I think it is Stocker. So, in Glendale. Thanks.
Great, then report back and tell us what you think of all the insights on that. That's very, very helpful. Anybody else want to ask a question about that? Okay. All right, so we're moving forward on that. What's the next issue?
Item number 3 is a Parks Perry motion relative to the use of $2.7 million from the Exposition Metrolink Construction Authority for the acquisition and development of the property located at North Exposition Boulevard and Southwestern Avenue for the development of additional parking for the Expo Western Light Rail Station.
Anybody want to report on this? Going once, going twice? Come on, give us a quick report. Put that BlackBerry down, or that iPhone.
Good afternoon, Parking Facilities, Rene Saglas, LADOT. We're all set to work out with GSD, and we have confirmed, also have already scoped out the area. So all we need right now is to get the property conveyed to LADOT so we can do the construction and design as far as the intent of this motion.
What action do you want us to take?
Well, we need the property to be conveyed, and property management is with General Services. So General Services have to be instructed to do the property acquisition and the environmental work that needs to be done. Once it's done, we can get the property conveyed to LADOT, and then we can work with the design, with the construction, with Bureau of Engineering.
And before they can even do that, we need to give the authority to the department to accept the money from Expo, which is what this motion does.
Right, Mr. Parks.
Yeah, this is a long-term issue that's being cleaned up at that location because of the Expo line, and so we need to open an account so they could accept the MTA money. But we also want to make sure that General Services understands they're the lead in this whole issue of eminent domain to gain possession of that property and any relocation before LADOT can then manage the property once it's in place. And then, Maria, you have some wording on some additional funds as part of the city's match on this to also go into that account.
Right. In fiscal year 2011, the council appropriated $700,000 for the purchase of the property, so that's currently in Fund 51Q, Western Property Purchase and Improvement Account number 9421G6, so we need to transfer that money as well to the SPRF new account in this motion. So we'd like to amend it to include that action as well.
Sounds good to me. Any comments, colleagues? Okay, can we go along with Mr. Parker on this? No agree?
Absolutely.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, council members.
Mr. Parker for articulating. Okay, next item.
That brings us to item number 5, which is a DOT report relative to amending the department's contract with Shelter Clean Services Incorporated to add maintenance for additional bike paths to the existing scope of work and to increase the fixed cost ceiling price of the contract to $2,48,159.
Anybody DOT on this issue, please come up. Obviously, when you hear it, cyclists are all listening, they're all paying attention to this. They all obviously want to be part of the process, and obviously I want them all to be part of this process going forward. So take us through these points and tell us what your advice is at this point.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Mishkin with LADOT Bikeways Office. Currently, Department of Recreation and Parks maintains all of city bike paths except 2 bike paths, Orange Line and Chandler Boulevard bike path. These 2 bike paths are maintained by a contractor, Shelter Clean, under a 5-year contract, which started October 2009, and it will expire September 2014, September 30th, 2014. Recently, Recreation and Park has informed us that they will no longer be able to maintain these bike paths due to lack of staff and resources. And so we need to amend the contract with our contractor to add these facilities that are being maintained by Recreation and Park to the contract with Shelter Clean until September of 2014, when the contract is expiring. So we're asking for authorization to amend the contract with the contractor and move forward with the maintenance.
Mr. Kretz.
Yeah, I know in general the city is contracting out everything in sight. I'm wondering a little bit of what's behind this. Are we saving money by doing this? Will it cost us more money than if it was done by the department?
Recreation and Park invoices this. We have an agreement with them, and they invoice the city at around $200,000 a year to maintain these facilities. What they do really minimum type of maintenance, sweeping, minimum landscape maintenance. With the contractor, we'll have a set routine of twice sweeping per week, plus maintenance of the landscaping and irrigation, graffiti removal. So in terms of cost, we are paying more to the contractor, but we are getting more services from them too.
Is there any reason why we couldn't use that money and hire more city staff and actually staff up so we could provide this same desired level of service?
We have offered the Recreation and Parks additional funds to hire staff, but they just don't have the staff or resources to do it. And
well, resources are money.
And the money is available.
Give them the money, they could hire staff, so I'm not clear on why they would be unable to do that.
Well, we did offer the funds are available. Any other, and even if we amend the contract and have the contractor do the work, Recreational Park has the option of picking some of these facilities, all of them, and continue maintaining it. What we are asking is to be able to work with the contractor that in case Recreational Park does not want to continue maintenance, we have the option to work with the contractor until the contract expires with the contract.
Yeah, I don't know about the rest of my colleagues, but I wouldn't be willing to go forward with this without hearing from Recreation and Parks.
And I have invited them to come to this meeting, and I haven't heard from them.
Mr. Rosendahl, I'd like to ask that we invite them to come back to this meeting and hear from them 2 weeks later, because it's not clear to me what's going on here and why they couldn't hire more staff and do the job. Do we know if people will be laid off because of this change?
I don't know, but I don't believe so.
So what would the people that were being paid to do it previously do with that money presumably being removed from the budget?
I'm sorry.
Well, at least be a couple $100,000 that would be removed from Recreation Park's budget. What do they do with the people that perform that work?
I wouldn't know.
We just met with Rec and Park. They've lost, I think, half of their part-time staff, and most of their losses have come because of the overhead taken from them because of the budget. So they're paying literally millions of dollars to pay back the general fund, and so their resources are almost down to nil. So that's why they are backing off these services.
But if we gave them the funding...
The thing is, you'd be at the same situation. If you gave them the funding, you'd use up your money to hire people, and you wouldn't get the work done. The same way we have problems with street services who say, we have people, but we don't have the ability to get the work done because we're using our money on people. So I think we can argue back and forth, but that's what Rec and Park is down over half of their part-time employees.
That's
and
right.
they have cut back on services across the board because of the cuts.
Mr. Chair, can I add something?
Oh, please do.
I think what we know too is that sometime before, recreational parks used to be the landscaper for all parks, the police buildings, everything, and they have just gone by way of the wind because, as Mr. Parks so firmly stated, they're gone. I have no problem with having a contract because then you could hold them pressure. They're not worried. John Muckrey has to worry about keeping that gymnasium open for the young people and of all ages to play in it. And so I would just as soon move this forward, because then you have someone accountable for, as someone who's on the river bikeway who does not see the maintenance that's necessary there. I think there's another question, Maria, if you could ask. The CAO's got to make a determination, where is the river going to end up? You build the bikeways, and it should not just be the Los Angeles River Bikeway, but every wash, the Bacoima Wash, the Tujunga Wash, every wash should have a bikeway. Take that land, but it's a different thing where we have either the Corps of Engineers or the County Flood Control. But I think it's very clean and simple when you just say, okay, they're responsible for it, they bid the contract, and you hold their feet to the fires. Do you have contract administrators in your department that do that, or is it Public Works Contract Administration?
We do that.
You do it. So because this has been going on since the beginning. It's only been they had time, and they did a lot of court referrals, too. They used to get a lot of court referrals, but they've gone by way of the wind as well. So if we want to get the bikeways cleaned this year, I think we implement this program.
So is that
But ask the CAO to make a determination in the future, the river, who's responsible, what department is going to claim it. Everybody loves the river, but no one claims it to maintain it. You know, you provide the bikeway and the engineering to it, but you're not a maintenance department, you're engineers. So, thank you.
Jaime, I know Mr. Quest's going to ask some more questions, but would you respond so far? I know you came up.
Yes, Jaime de la Vega. The department's concerned about the safety implications of not maintaining our bike paths in a clean manner. Our request would be that the committee move this forward to the council and direct Rec and Parks to answer Councilman Koretz's questions before you take this up at the full council, rather than delaying.
Mr. Koretz, will you buy into that? Because I like the idea of putting their feet to the fire 100% with you on this one, and I would like them to get that message from the head of the department right now that they're going to have to respond to this before the council acts.
I mean, the other question I have is, if it's always been funded at a $200,000 level, where does the extra $750,000 come from? And how have we prioritized this so much in a situation where the city's looking at a $200 million shortfall plus next year?
We are using our bike path maintenance funds that mainly comes from TDA funds and Prop C maintenance. So we do have funding set aside for maintenance of these facilities. And we do have we have set aside more than $200,000 that goes to Recreation Park. So the funding is available through TDA and Prop C on a yearly basis.
So this isn't digging into our general fund?
No, it's not.
No.
Okay, well, I still have the other concern. I guess if we're anxious to get this moving, we could have those questions answered at council.
Great, because I want those answers, obviously. It makes a lot of sense, Mr. Koretz, but if we do it within that timely sequence, we could actually accomplish it.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen unless you get a contractor out there right now. And I think the people who ride the bikeway doesn't care. They care that there's free of debris, that it's painted, that it's safe, and they operate. I know you're out there all the time.
Yeah, what I wanted, Tina Backstrom, DOT, what I wanted to let you know was that as of right now, Rec and Parks has stopped maintaining those bike paths.
Right.
So per,
Liability.
exactly, per the bike plan, section, policy 3.3.3, we are required to maintain those bike paths, and right now, we're not. The only ones that are getting maintained are the Orange Line and the Chandler bike paths, which our contractor is currently maintaining, and they're doing a fantastic job at maintaining those. And they are providing the management of it. So there are other issues with the maintenance. There's homelessness that our contractors, we go out there and we have to deal with all of these issues, and they're happening on every one of the bike paths. So as of right now, there's nothing happening. We have to maintain them.
We're obviously in a quandary. Yeah. I'm happy to see this move forward, but I will be a no vote in committee.
Yeah, I just want, Tina, could you advise the committee of the termination clause on the contract? I think that's important that the council at a future date does either direct Rec and Parks, provides the staff resources so they can restore the services. We could get out of the contract and revert to the prior arrangement. Is that correct?
We can. This is basically for a ceiling of this particular amount. So we'd like to be able to have the option to continue to add. Here are all the bike paths. I don't know if you've read the our notice here, but these are all the bike paths, and it will allow for us to, if we don't want them to maintain that one, then the contractor has the ability, we'll tell the contractor not to, but we need to right now be able to add these particular paths to their current contract. They are only right now allowed to maintain Orange Line and Chandler, and I'm trying to get the Orange Line extension, which is already open. We're trying to add the extension to that as well. And we also have bike paths in construction, which are scheduled to be completed by the end of the year. Those bike paths will have to be maintained as well, and those are in this particular contract.
So presumably that would be a relatively quick notice period.
Correct.
And just to clarify, so if Rec and Parks was able to do this level of funding, would it be available to them to do this level of service?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you're comfortable with that, we'd like a yes vote out of you, but we can go forward in the council and get Rec and Park to respond publicly before we vote.
Yeah, no, I'll still be a no vote, but it's fine.
Okay.
Just to say, Mr. Roselle, this is like a business improvement district. It's a bikeway improvement district where they're the contractors. They're paying for the shelter clean. They're very effective around the city, and it makes a difference. And Paul, I just tell you, Prop 13, there were 273 workers who worked for street maintenance at the time. We called street maintenance. They drove little trucksters, three-wheel motorcycles. They swept Broadway. They swept Hollywood, Wilshire, streets throughout Vermont Avenue. After 13, immediately they were eliminated. So business districts needed someone over these years to try to create the cleanliness that is necessary to be attractive. The same thing, the cleanliness and necessary and the safety. Because if there's an accident on a bikeway and we're neglected for not maintaining it, we could end up in this guy's court.
That's right.
Okay, so let's take a vote on it. It appears to be 3-1 to move forward with this. Am I hearing the energy right in the room, Mr. Labange?
Yes.
And Mr. Parks?
Yes.
Mr. Rosendahl, we're going to go along with this. He's going to vote no, right?
Yes.
but with the understanding
Yes,
that...
I will be a, yes, I will be a no.
That's right. I was trying to trick you. No. Okay, great. Thank you very much. End with that item. Now, we're at item number 8.
Item number 8 is a Labange Rosendahl motion instructing DOT to report relative to the feasibility of adding a right turn only lane at Grove Drive and 3rd Street for westbound travel on 3rd Street in order to alleviate traffic congestion by increasing capacity of the roadway and realignment of the lanes.
Go for it. Hi.
Good afternoon. Roy Kim with Department of Transportation. We have completed a feasibility study and found that adding a right turn lane is feasible. We've already started design on it. Design should be completed within next 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll share, once it's finished, we'll share that with your office.
You got a nice smile on, Mr. Labange. You okay?
Yeah, these guys do their work.
They sure do. I know.
Thank you, Roy.
Okay. Is that unanimous, colleagues, on this?
Just one quick question.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Koretz has a question.
I know the intersection, it's right near my district, and, I see the impacts. Do we have an idea of what we can expect in terms of an improvement from this change?
Actual implementation of the right turn pocket there?
Yeah, how much of a difference do we think it'll make?
How much of difference will it make?
Yeah.
We will be able to, right now, currently, curb lane is 18 feet wide. So in reality, a lot of people use it as a double lane. When the light turns red, they can pull into the empty space next to the curb and make a right turn. But if we designate a right turn pocket there, then we'll definitely delineate those through traffic, separate the through traffic from the right turn lane. So it will have some benefits to it.
Very good. Looking forward to seeing it.
Mr. Koretz, you know who the junior engineer for that area is?
I have no idea.
Me. Okay.
I don't know how junior Tommy is.
It might be the senior engineer.
Okay, any other comments on this? Okay, can we move forward with it, colleagues?
We'll approve the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Approve the motion. Okay, now to motion number 9, Design and Parks.
This motion is Design Parks motion instructing DOT to report on recommendations for state legislation and local regulations to combat the fraudulent use of handicap parking placards.
Good afternoon, and thanks for coming. You're looking at a person that now has a handicap plaque by the reality of my cancer situation. And when I leave the government, I'm going to get one on the license plate. So the issue is resolved. But we have a lot of fraudulent plates, and we see lots of problems. Where do we go on this at this point?
Well, as you know, this is a multi-state,
Your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry, Greg Savelli, Los Angeles Department of Transportation.
And it's a pleasure to...
Parking enforcement. Thank you, sir. As you know, this is a city, state, and local problem. We are working, last year we worked with Senator De Leon's office, who was going to introduce some legislation that we were in full support of, and primarily focused on access to the placard itself. As in your scenario, you have an MD that gives you the placard, but it can go down to a nurse practitioner, and it can go to a chiropractor. And I think there's some control mechanisms that we support, that we have recommended, and we share with our partners at the state to pursue this. The biggest hurdle is the information getting out, that we're trying to make more spaces available for people that need the spaces by imposing certain regulations, some areas where they pay for a certain period of time, but always have a group of people that can get access, especially if they're respiratory or ambulatory problems. We want to get them as close to the facilities as they can, and so there's concepts out there, as I know you've been forwarded the Michigan report, that talks about different levels of permits. There's an A level that gets you close to everything, and then there's a B level where you may have to pay, but you still get access, and there's different things. I just learned today from Mr. Andelon that the experiment in Washington, D.C. has not gone all the way, and their red top meters has not been implemented. So we're working to watch what's going on there and how they are dealing with the disabled community to make sure that they get their access while we don't get the people that abuse it and take up all our downtown spots. We've also asked our vendor on the Express Park to try to give us some numbers on how many spaces are taken up by placards, so we can get a handle on that. So our officers are dispatched by the system to say, the spot's occupied, it hasn't been paid for, we go out there, we see a placard, we record that information.
Sure. Yeah, it's very interesting what you're saying there about it. I've learned the hard way. I am a person with disabilities, and most of our, quote, disability setups are absolutely out of compliance. And you get a whole airport redone in Sacramento, and all the ADA rules went out the window. You know, and a lot of simple things as a person in my state. I need guardrails to hold on to, for God's sake, and I need them close to my body, not 10 feet away. Things like that. So many little things are stupid that don't work for a person with disability. So what they should definitely do is take the disability community into their meetings to help explain the issue. You know, I'm constantly looking down at the floor to make sure I don't trip over this, I don't trip over that, so on and so forth. And then from a very, very serious standpoint, we are in violation of a lot of ADA rules in this city and throughout the state and throughout the nation. And we have to come up with a better understanding of what a person needs, and that's safe. Because the truth of the matter is, Mr. Parks is the oldest guy here, I'm the second oldest guy, and the reality is, we all want to be 100 years old. We got a lot more.
The third oldest guy.
You're getting there, bud. But
Hey, we might be
the truth of
competing.
the matter is, these are big issues that have to be dealt with, and we really appreciate you working with the state on that. Colleagues, any comments on this at all? Please, Mr. Koretz.
Yeah, it's an odd and tough thing to deal with, because on the one hand, you have someone like Bill as an example. I mean, he uses his placard.
I'll do that right now.
You don't want him having to walk a block back to feed the meter. On the other hand, I've seen people who are modestly disabled on Grand Avenue walk 3 blocks from their parking space rather than drive into the office building that they should be in, 20 feet from their destination, and avoid paying the fee. So somehow we need to find some sort of happy medium. So not only do we catch people, and I knew one person who used his deceased grandmother's parking pass for years, I won't mention any names, but even people that are slightly disabled, I've seen abuse this process. So I don't know how we handle it appropriately and free up more spaces rather than have people park for free all day when they're able-bodied enough not to have to do that.
That's a good point, and let me just make this, Mr. Parks is about to leave, we're going to lose a quorum here, which we cannot afford to lose. Can you also talk to the Department of Disabilities and to the Board of Disabilities, bring them into your plan discussion so that we get a healthy, robust internal discussion in our
I've met with the county-wide disability group just a few months back, and they're definitely in the loop, and they want to have input, and obviously they need to have input.
And so should be.
I think if we can continue and have the report back from the department, they can meet with people and have some recommendations for us. I think that'd be helpful.
That's excellent, and that would be the motion then. We'll move forward with it in that direction. Mr.
Great.
Parks, we got your support on that, and it's unanimous of the 3 members left in the committee. Thank you for that, Maria, for giving us the way out of this situation. Thank you, gentlemen, for what you've just presented. Thank you, the head of the department, for your leadership, and I look forward to that meeting when you give me an update on safety issues on the humps. Okay? Thank you all. Any other public discussion? Anything else to be said by anybody?
Nope.
No other comments, discussion? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.